Are there any questions?
I just wanted to add one thing. I gave the presentation from Best for Kids in the spring, and I said that we'd be back with this report, and there was a connection. As Kristen said, in our mapping, we did find the connection. There seems to be more crime coming from lower income neighborhoods, but, and now this is my personal belief, coming from a low income neighborhood doesn't make you prone to committing crime. As we saw in all the other mapping, we found that a lot of these children from low income neighborhoods were not involved in anything. So children from middle and upper income neighborhoods were involved in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 activities a week. The children from the low-income neighborhoods were not involved in the library. They were not involved in soccer. They weren't involved in the Y. They weren't involved in anything. My own personal belief is that if you're not involved in anything from that young age, you have no connection to the community. You don't feel any responsibility to the community, and that is more likely to lead to issues with crime. And I remember Debbie Bourne telling me almost 10 years ago that all the programs that she used to run 25, 30 years ago, the neighborhood programs, that when they were cut, and it might have saved a couple $100,000 in those days, that she said someday, 20 years from now, you're going to come back and say that the cost of eliminating those programs is going to come back 10 times over. And the city has done great things in doing things like John Roads and the skateboard park and the Esser Center, but these are centralized facilities. What has disappeared over the years is the neighborhood level parks. Our school parks are in terrible shape. That a lot of the older schools are being torn down, and those parks are going, disappearing as well. There are, the lower income neighborhoods where the majority of our children are being born, and they're not accessing community activities. And I think there's implications of that. Again, that's my personal belief, but the data seems to support that as well. So if you have questions, we have Kristen's here, as well as Chris Sambo, and we have the police department represented as well.
Before we proceed with questions, Councillor Hayes, you wanted to give an overview?
I had some comments, yeah. Okay. But do you want me to do that after the questions?
Well, I think because you're lead on this, you might want to give your comments, and that'll maybe lead to questions on this matter.
Sure, I'll give my comments now. A couple of things that stood out to me with the report is the violent crimes. And, there's 80 people under the age of 18 were actually charged with violent crimes. And by violent crimes, we're talking, 6 weapons offenses, 64 assaults, 4 robberies. And that really concerns me. And I think the other thing that jumps out is that this $2 million study of the roots of youth violence. A review of that report concluded that Ontario can reduce violence involving youth by adopting a more coordinated, more comprehensive, and more community-focused approach. And I think that's exactly what we intend to continue to do with this report being step 1 of the process. I mean, this report gave us our initial base data for 3 years, and if we just shelve the report and do nothing with it, I think that would be a travesty. And that was the purpose of the resolution, is asking council to endorse the continuation of the committee so that we can determine what those next steps in our community-focused approach might be. And I've also asked council to include Kim Strike-Poser, our Commissioner of Community and Social Services, on that committee, as well as Nick Apostle. And the reason I wanted Nick Apostle on it is that council may recall a year ago at AMO, one of the things I brought back to council was looking at the affordability of recreation for everybody in the province. Well, a policy framework has just come out from the government called Affordable Access to Recreation for Ontarians, Everyone Plays. And I think that this report and Nick's contribution on this committee, I think our members can ultimately come up with some recommendations to come back to council. And my sense is that these recommendations will include going after the government for funding a position to perhaps explore some of these opportunities, to look at the service gaps, to do an inventory of what's going on with youth services in Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm hoping council will endorse the continuation of the committee and let us come back with some more recommendations. This report being step 1, and I think it was a great report. I think it was extremely well done, and it gives us data to move forward with. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, questions? Councillor Sheehan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and my thanks to all involved in this process in the committee. A very good job done. My question pertains to youth unemployment. Was that studied? And I'm thinking about the older youth, summer jobs, jobs for after work, et cetera, et cetera. Was there any study or thought given to the correlation? It's the same thing, keeping them busy in parks or in low-income areas that perhaps work and things of that nature. Was any analysis done on that particular area?
Kristen did look at total unemployment by census area, not specifically youth unemployment, but there is a correlation between lower income neighborhoods and unemployment. So, they tend to go together.
Because when Councillor Hayes was speaking and yourself, it just occurred to me we do have a number of youth service providers that deal with jobs, and when you started showing the areas of where some of these areas are, it might make sense for them to sort of maybe set up some job fairs in those areas.
My emphasis is always, along with the provincial report, is the roots of violence. Mm-hmm. And again, I figure by the time you're a teen and you're unemployed, it's your upbringing up to that point that determines whether, just because you're unemployed doesn't mean you're a criminal either. It's what is the root cause of the youth crime. It goes back to the young ages and how you were, parenting style and your involvement with the community. But as Kristen said, this is a now and future solution. So it's dealing with the youth crime now, but also preventing the next generation of youth crime. So it was kind of looked at from both angles.
Fair enough. And I'll just have just a quick comment. I can do it after if you want.
Okay, I'll note you. All right, Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly want to also recognize the work that's been done. It's fantastic to have a baseline to start and to record data for us as council to teach us and bring an awareness to all of us in the community. So thank you, Councillor Hayes, for bringing this forward. It's probably, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important pieces of work I've seen in my short time on council, and tremendous, disturbing and yet extremely important, informative for us to act on. And thank you both for the work. It's great. I think actually, Paul, you alluded to something that I want to ask, and perhaps it'll be Councillor Hayes that will respond to this, but I know that at some point this will go to the broader community, but the whole thought of schools, and without sounding like the middle-aged woman that I really am, when we had schools growing up, it was in our neighborhood, and everything evolved around the school in terms of your after-school programs and so on and so forth, right through to skating rinks and ball diamonds and everything. And I agree with Paul, some of your comments and observations. So, Councillor Hayes, is there a plan in the very short term to get this information to the school boards? It's timely, it's the beginning of a school year, simply a presentation to them at this point in time. With, I know down the road, I'm sure will be the fuller plans of what to do with that, but just even as information at this time, my question would be, is there a plan to get it to the school boards right away? Thank you.
My hope, actually, Councillor Myers, is that we'll get the report posted on the website as soon as possible, and it'll be available to the community. The taxpayers paid for this report. And then the school board was involved in some of the meetings, so they're well aware of the information. And, I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire committee yet until council endorses its continuation. And at that time, we'll come back with recommendations to bounce off council.
Can I add to that, Brian?
Sure, please, Paul.
The Charles Pascal that just did the study for the province of Ontario on the early years is recommending that it be mandatory for the school boards to provide their schools before and after school all summer long for community use of schools. So that is coming. I think it's how the city is going to take advantage of the school boards having to provide those facilities.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grandinetti.